Supposed to be learning with Shabbat in English for Shleima. So we're going to start today Yud Zayin Amar Aleph. The Mishnah, yeah. This is yesterday's daf. Probably everything's okay. Everything's okay. Working on the clock. Okay. There's a gap between the wall and the schach. If the gap is 3 tvachim, so then the sukkah is possible. Rashi adds in an interesting point. He says, from here, I want to prove that the way I view a Deifen Akuma, a bent wall, is that I take the wall and I arch it, I make it into an arch on top. But not that I make a diagonal from the base of the wall to the schach. Because if I would make a diagonal, then even if there's a gap of 3 tvachim, I could still make a diagonal. So the halacha of Deifen Akuma, which means pasal schach on the sides of the sukkah, can be bent 4 amas, and it's still considered the wall, is actually a wall and on an angle, but not that it's a diagonal wall. That's what Rashi says. So what we yeah. So it's a vertical wall. No, it becomes a vertical wall and a horizontal wall. Yeah, it's a horizontal. Right. Okay, that was case 1. That should be easy enough. The halacha that was in the first case of the Mishnah was that airspace of 3 tvachim would ruin a sukkah. Let's go to the next 3 cases. We're going to have 3 cases here that are very, very similar. And the Amar's going to ask why we need all 3. Bayis shenifkas, a house that the roof caved in. So on the caved-in roof, which now became like a skylight, you put schach on that. If you have from the walls to the schach, because it didn't cave in all the way to the edge of the walls. It's not wall-to-wall schach, like wall-to-wall carpet. It's not wall-to-wall. It's just in the center it caved in. So if the lip is less than 4 amas, so then it's kosher. But if it is 4 amas, then it's possible. That was case 1. The same thing would apply to a courtyard that's surrounded by a chsadra, is like an awning or a portico. Rashi tells me something very interesting about this. He says, similar to this is a cloister. Sounds like a church. Sounds like galachim. They have airspace. They have grass, and it's surrounded by a chsadra. I don't know. Surprised that would be an example of maybe you've never had that kind of space back in the time. One place you would see a courtyard or whatever, like the old kind. Yeah, be like in those books, the friar, the brothers walking around. Okay, so what's going on over here? You have houses in a ches shape. In the center is a courtyard, but going around the houses and the inside is an awning, so that you can walk under, like a porch area. You can walk under that, and then if you walk out of it, then you're in an open courtyard. So what they did was they put schach across the whole courtyard, from awning to awning, across the whole thing. So that's a beautiful sukkah. Only thing is, where are your walls? Yeah. So where are your walls? That's a good picture. What page is that in the book? Page Kafala in the back, if you have that in the Gemara. So where are your walls? Your walls are actually the walls of the house, behind the awning. So, but that would only work if the awning is less than 4 amos. If the awning is 4 amos, then the walls are disconnected from the schach. You have a schach without walls. That doesn't work. The sukkah needs to have 3 walls, or 2 and a tepa. Sukkah gedela shekifu b'davar shein mesachim by im yesh tachtav arba amos psula. Another interesting case. If you have a very large sukkah and you surrounded the edges of the sukkah with something that's not kosher for schach, let's say like aluminum foil or sheets of metal, some sort, put it all the way around. So the inside of the sukkah should be kosher as long as you don't have 4 amas of that invalid schach. All these cases are exactly the same. Basically, 4 amas of invalid schach will disconnect the schach from the walls. We said it 3 times. So the Gemara right away says, Kol hani lamali. Why do you need those 3 times? We said the same thing. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Pretty well. Yeah. Daifin Akuma works for 3 walls as well. It works for 4 walls. Like we don't on the Dafdala, I think. Anything less than 4 amas is not considered a wall. Anything under 4 amas is considered a wall. Will connect it to the wall and will just be an arch. Anything more wrong. Right. Gemara says tzricha. These cases are necessary. The Yashmin and Bayis Shenifkas, if it would have only had the case of the house that caved in, Mishum Dahani Mechitzas Labayis Avidan. Aval Chatzer Mekefas Achsaja, the Mechitzas Lavla Achsaja Avidi Emalai. Explanation is like this. An arch, the way it works is that it's basically caving in. I put the rock, those on the, it's going to fall in. Only thing is, I have a keystone in the center that holds it from collapsing. But basically, it's all falling, and the keystone holds it. So if I have a house, and the inside caved in, so what I'm going to say is that the wall arches. And the inside, the center is the spot, but it's going this way. Fine. So we'll say that we do Daifin Akuma and there's an arch. But by the Achsadra, the houses would go this way, would arch. I have an awning on the back of it. Can you make an arch that goes the wrong way? Yeah, what's holding that? Like, what's the support of that? Do you say an arch that goes away from the way the walls were made? It's arching outward. Kamash Malan, that you do. But you do say Daifin Akuma. That it's not an arch because this would be something natural. There's different ways of viewing this, but this is a halacha l'mishmishina that we say that's the simple that. However, there are different types of arches. I explained one that with the keystone. There's another type where you put the weight enough. You do this when you build with blocks. You make it heavier on one side so it doesn't collapse on the inside. But when you do that, you can do an arch on both sides, even without a support. Okay, so the chiddush here is that you can make an arch away from the natural way the walls were made. Biyashmin and hanitarti, if we would say both of those. So, mishum the sichachan skach kasherum. What was the arch made out of? It's made out of wood. Now, I don't use that wood because there's a problem. It was put up for my house. It was put up for my awning. It wasn't put up for a sukkah. The problem of Tasavim, and I'll say I can't build the sukkah with the intention that it's a house and then just change my mind in the middle of the year and say it's a sukkah. So if you build it, if I build a sukkah during the year, then fine. But if I build a house, and then I say, hey, look, my roof is, I use bamboo. I built it out of natural bamboo. Should be a sukkah, a kosher sukkah as well. I can't do that because I built it as a house. So the intention affects the kashas. It can't be a house. So, but nevertheless, the material is kosher schach. You follow, the material is kosher. However, in my last case, the material wasn't kosher. Maybe I only say doifen akuma when the schach itself is good. Follow? Maybe I only say doifen akuma when the schach would be good. Just my problem is intention. And over here, the problem is more than intention. Maybe I'd say I don't say doifen akuma. It's a tricha. So each of these cases is a kiddush. That's what the Gemara just did. Okay. It's going to happen now until the rest of the daf, until Daf Yutes, is going to be a discussion about the amount of schach pasuk that invalidates a sukkah. Everyone's going to agree that 3 tefachim of open space would invalidate a sukkah. Question is, how much schach pasuk invalidates a sukkah? We've learned so far that there's 2 measurements of schach pasuk. One measurement is 4 tefachim. Another measurement is 4 amos. The 4 amos measurement was used on the side of the sukkah. And the 4 tefachim measurement was used in the center of the sukkah. So in other words, if I have a sukkah, we have a picture there. Yeah. I have a sukkah like this. I have a sukkah that has schach on both sides. But in the center, there's 4 tefachim of schach pasuk going straight down the center. What the schach pasuk would do is that it would separate the 2 sides, make it into 2 sukkahs. Each side has 2 walls, which is an invalid sukkah because the sukkah needs to have 2 walls on the tefach, or 3 walls. And since it's open on the front, the sukkahs are open on the front, so it only has 2 walls, so the sukkah becomes invalid. All it is a chatzitza, like a chatzitza in the mikveh, that's something on a person's skin. It's not really in the water. It separates. It's a chatzitza between the 2 sides, and the 2 sides of the sukkah.
Rabbi, the picture you sent had 4. Only it wasn't 4 by 4. It was just like a straight line. Was I looking at the right picture?
A straight line going straight down the sukkah from the front till the end of it.
But so it's really only
sukkah. If it went down only until 7 tefachim from the back of the sukkah, and I still had a kosher sukkah on the back, then the rest of the sukkah would be kosher. It divides it all the way to the end. So there is no kosher sukkah there. It's just half a sukkah and half a sukkah. Yeah. I have a relative that was divorced before they married my relative. But by the first divorce, so they had to split everything. So they owned a car. So I had to split the car. So the suggestion was given that this woman should go to the junkyard and give the say half a car. So anyway, over here, they would split the sukkah. You get half a sukkah, but half a sukkah is not a kosher sukkah. Okay. There's going to be a discussion. It's in Surah, which is the location where Rav is. Rav is going to have the understanding that we just said. In Nardoi, which is the location where Shmuel lived, Shmuel is going to have the understanding that we just said. And in other words, there's two versions to this machlokes. And each location, they're going to attribute the correct understanding or the understanding that we have to the rabbi that lived in that location. So Surah is going to follow. Rav is going to have the correct understanding, and Shmuel is going to have the correct understanding. But they hold the same thing. Just they have different versions of what the other side holds. Okay, it starts like this. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Rabba is, I don't know where to put Rabba. He was the head of the yeshiva of Bedisa with Rabbi Yosef, but I don't know if he belongs under the Rav or under the Shmuel. There's probably more closer to the Rav. Let's see. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Ashkachtinu l'Rabbanan de Rav v'yasvi v'kamri. I found the students of Rav that were sitting and they said the following. In the name of Rav. That point is left down. Avir paisel b'shleisha, schach pasel paisel barbar. Ear space, avir is ear. Ear space invalidates a sukkah with 3 tvachim. In schach pasel invalidates a sukkah with 4 tvachim. How do I know it's tvachim? Because arba'ah is lashon zachar, and arba'ah would be tvachim as opposed to arba amas. Yeah. The only confusion here is that it could be arba, could also be etzba'ot. But anyway, arba'ah is tvachim. In the numbers, for some strange reason, the zachar and the keva are switched. What we would imagine to be a lashon and the keva is really a lashon zachar. So arba'ah ends with a hey. This is zachar, so which means tvachim. Okay, so the students of Rav said in the name of Rav that 3 tvachim for ear space, 4 tvachim for schach pasel invalidates the sukkah. And like we said, it's going straight down the sukkah, dividing it in half. Then I told them, Avir the paisel b'shleisha minalahu. Where do you get this from? That ear space of 3 tvachim. You probably read our Mishnah. Ditna, and it says in our Mishnah, if you have ear space in between the walls and the schach 3 tvachim, it's invalid. Schach pasel namiloi lifsalala barbamas. Why don't you finish reading the Mishnah? If you've continued the Mishnah, it says that schach pasel is 4 amas. You need 4 amas. Now, the way we learned it, we know the response to that the 4 amas is not in the center of the sukkah. The 4 amas is on the side of the sukkah. We're talking about in the center. So V'amrli, they responded, Bar mineda hi. Like bar means like outside. Like besides exclude that one. The Rav Shmuel Amri Tavayo, because Rav and Shmuel both explained Mishum Daifen Akuma Nagaba. How do we translate Nagaba? Yeah. Applied. The Daifen Akuma was applied to this. That that Mishnah had a different reason. That was because of Daifen Akuma. It was an arched wall. We're talking about in the center. So Rabbah doesn't hold that. Rabbah holds that in the center and on the sides, it's all 4 amas. So in other words, Rabbah's din of Daifen Akuma is not a din in Daifen Akuma. He has the same halacha that you have 4 amas, but it's not because of an arch. It's because 4 amas invalidates the sukkah in the center or on the side. So he has the same conclusion about the sides, but that would apply also in the center, according to Rabbah. I told to them a very interesting logic. He said, "Ma ilu ikas chach pasel pachas merba v'avir pachas mishleisha mai Let's say you have not enough schach puzzle, according to you. What was it? What's your opinion, the students of Rav? 4 tvachim. Let's say you have 3.9. Not enough to invalidate the sukkah. And you also have avir, airspace. How much avir would invalidate? 3 tvachim. You don't have 3 tvachim. You only have 2.9. And you put them together. What's the din? My kshera. It's going to be kosher. Yeah, you don't have enough. You don't have enough of this. You don't have enough of that. Malya b'shipud mai. So what did I do? I take a metal spit and I add it to the 3.9 of my schach puzzle. Now I have 4 tvachim of schach puzzle and 2.8 of avir space. What's the din then? Psula becomes invalid. Just 1 second. There's a problem here. It used to be worse, and it was kosher. Now you improved it, and it becomes puzzle. Why was it worse before? Because what's stricter, airspace or invalid schach? Airspace, because airspace is 3 tvachim. Invalid schach invalidates at 4 tvachim. So airspace is stricter. I had before 2.9 airspace. 3.9 schach puzzle. I increased my schach puzzle and decreased my airspace, and I ended up with the puzzle sukkah. It's not logical. Airspace is much worse. So Vamrali, they responded to me, Ihachi, according to you, Lididach nami damit schach puzzle paisel bar ba'amas, my iluika schach puzzle pachas midal ramas vavir pachas mishleisha my kshera. Let's say you have, according to you, Rabbah. Rabbah holds how much schach puzzle invalidates a sukkah? 4 amas. So let's say you have 3.9 amas of schach puzzle. 2.9 tvachim of airspace. What's the din? Kshera. Okay. Malya b'shipud mai. Add 1 more spit of schach puzzle there. How much do you have now? You have 4 amas of whatever the size of this spit is. 4 amas of schach puzzle, and you have now 2.8 or more of or less rather or less of airspace, and your sukkah became puzzle. He says, 1 second, what's the dimpsula? It used to be better. Look, schach puzzle is 4 amas according to you. Airspace is only 3 tvachim. You increased your schach puzzle, which is an improvement to airspace. But nevertheless, your sukkah becomes puzzle. What's going on? So I explained to them, Hi, Mai. This is Rabba discussing. He gave them a strong question, and they said that's a good question, but that question is on you as well, and on you it's even stronger. So he responds back. He says, "No, that's not how it works. It's good according to me. Damina that I say arba amas. I have like this law of arba amas. Mishum shira v'lav shirahu. That has to do with the measurement. There's a shear of schach puzzle. The measurement. What's the shear of schach puzzle? Arba amas. I love shirahu, and I didn't have 4 amas, so it was kosher. Now I had 4 amas, so it's puzzle. Even though and I can't combine the two. I can't combine schach puzzle with airspace. Why? Because the only things that could combine are things that have equal measurements in halacha. So, for example, on Yom Kippur, you want to eat. You don't want to eat, but if someone eats, what was the measurement on Yom Kippur? The size of a date, right? What was the measurement of drink? Was revius. So if you have half a date plus the measurement of drink, it doesn't combine because those are 2 separate measurements. The only thing that could combine are things that have the same measurement. So here I have schach pasel, which is 4 amas, and ear space, which is 3 tvachim. And I have a mixture of both. I don't really have a full 4 amas, but if I use the ear space, that would complete the 4 amas. I don't let it complete it. I don't say that it combines. I say it's two independent things. Even doesn't combine. But according to you, students of Rav, Damrisu, that you say Shir Misham Haflaga, you're not looking for a Shir. Because 4 Tvachim is not a Shir. 4 Tvachim is just a Chatzitza. Mali Ispalag B'schach Pasel, Mali Ispalag B'schach Pasel Vavir. What's the difference to you if you separate your 2 sukkahs? If you separate it with Schach Pasel, or if you separate it with a combination of Schach Pasel and Avir, either way, once you have 4 Tvachim, your sukkah is divided. A chatzitza on the body. A mixture of 2 things that becomes a chatzitza is a chatzitza. It doesn't have to be enough of ketchup and mustard that's on your finger. It doesn't have to be a shear of each one. It's a chatzitza, whatever the amount is. So here, the chatzitza in the sukkah, you're dividing the sukkah in half to have only 2 walls on one side and 2 walls on the other side. 4 tvachim will do it, whatever it's a combination of. Bishleim, according to Rabbah, he says that I have a special halacha that it's Dalet Amas. Dalet Amas is a shear. It's like a kazayas, a revius. It's a shear. It's a halachic shear. So if you don't have the 4 Amas, you don't have it. But according to you, that it's just dividing the sukkah, not a shear of 4 tvachim. It's just, there is no shear of 4 tvachim in Hilchos Sukkah. It's just separating the 2 sides, not connected. So it could be 4 tvachim made out of a combination. Amalei Abaya says to Rabbah, Lamar Nami, according to the master also, according to Rabbah. Abaya calls Rabbah Mar. Nehid leishavish Uriah b'sukkah gedola, b'sukkah ketanim leishavish Uriah. Let's say I have a sukkah that's exactly 7 tvachim. I need 7 tvachim of schach. Now the truth is that lavud can play a part in this. If I don't have a full 7 tvachim of schach, but I have 4 tvachim plus, that could fill in the gaps because of lavud. Lavud makes it solid. But let's say I have 4 tvachim, and the rest is ear space. But let's say I have 4 tvachim, and the rest is schach pasel. Those 3 tvachim, both of them will invalidate the sukkah. So Abaya says like this. He says to Rabbah, you're telling me that the shear of ear space is 3 tvachim. The shear of schach pasel is 4 amas. It's not true. In a small sukkah, the shear of ear space is 3 tvachim. The shear of schach pasel is 3 tvachim. Because if I don't have 7 tvachim, 3 tvachim will invalidate the sukkah. They both have the same shear. In the small sukkah. In a small sukkah, because I need 7 tvachim. Now, lavud could fill that in if there's a space less than 3. But if you don't have less than 3, you have actually 3, then it wouldn't matter if it's schach pasel or ear space. So if they have the same measurement in one instance, then you can already combine them in other instances. Sort of like grandfathered in because of another halacha. Amalei, Rabbah responds, Hasam lav mishum deshavu shirayla adadihu. That's not because they have the same measurement. Elam mishum deles lashir the sukkahu. It's not a shear of ear space. It's not a shear of schach pasel. It's just the lack of a sukkah. So it turns out that the same measurement, but it's just because of the sukkah not being complete. It's not because of invalidating a sukkah because of something else that's being added to this. Yeah. 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 Anything larger than 7 would not be 3 tvachim for both of them. It would be 4 tvachim for this, or 4 amas for this, and 3 tvachim for that. Okay. Let's pause here for 1 minute, and let's go back to a Taisus. And we usually don't do this inside, but I think it's worthwhile. Eluf. It's on Daf Yud Zayin. What Tosfos does, tells us two halachas of lavud. Lavud does two things. Lavud makes the gap solid. In between two pieces, it makes it solid. It also combines two pieces, that it connects them together. It's as if there's no separation. So Tosfos says like this. Let's jump down. Miyu. You see Miyu? Hege de gesneit vachem schachpassel. Besneit vach, besnaim shel schachpassel. Va'avir mafsek b'neim pachas migimel. He has a question. I have two tvachim of schachpassel here. Two tvachim of schachpassel here. And there's a gap in the middle of under 3 tvachim. It says, Ikal esfukim shnei psulim mitzdarfen l'arba lipsalas hasukah. Maybe the 2 tvachim of schachpassel will combine with these 2 tvachim of schachpassel because there's less than lavud. There's lavud in the middle. There is lavud in the center. It will combine those 2 tvachim and create 4 tvachim of schachpassel, which would invalidate my sukkah. Maybe there's airspace in the center. You don't have a solid 4 tvachim. Or maybe you don't have 3 tvachim in the center, so it won't. Look at how Tosfos finishes. So his question here is, do I say that I can combine 2 and 2 with the airspace in the center less than 3? But let's say I don't have 4 tvachim. I have a tefach and a half, let's say, on this side. And I have a tefach and a half on this side. That's a total of 3 tvachim. That's not going to be schach pasum. And I have a tefach in the center of airspace. So ein havir mashlim al arba. Tosfos says it's definite that I don't say a tefach and a half on this side, a tefach and a half on this side, and the tefach of airspace in the center is going to become solid. I don't say lavud lahachmer. I don't say that. Let's say I use on my sukkah, I use metal to hold up my schach. There's a problem of using really metal to hold up the schach. But let's say there is metal there, and I have boards on top. The schach is resting on top of boards. It's not mimid, whatever. But there is metal going across, and those metal are those beams are 2.5 tvachim apart. And together with the beams, that would be together with the beams, it would be a complete 4 tvachim of schach pasel. Do I say that the airspace becomes solid because of lavud? Tosfos says absolutely not. You don't say lavud. Remember our question with the screen? I said, can you put a screen under your schach? If I say lavud lahachmer, then it becomes one solid piece of metal or plastic, whatever your screen is, and it won't be good. Tosfos says you don't say that. You don't say lavud lahachmer. What I do say is if I have actual 2 tvachim plus 2 tvachim, and I have less than 3 tvachim in the center, I'll say that it merges. That I'll say that. So there's 2 dinim in lavud, and lahachmer I only can say one of them. Yeah, it's a very important Tosfos. Okay. You follow? The question is okay. So basically what we left off with in the Gemara was that there is a machlekes if schach pasel invalidates a sukkah with 4 tvachim or 4 amos. Students of Rav said 4 tvachim, and Rabbah says 4 amos. And we said that you can't combine the 4 amos with the with 3 tvachim of airspace because it's a different measurement. Abaya says, but maybe in a small sukkah they have the same measurement. He said that's not a measurement of schach pasel, that's a measurement of sukkah, which you're just lacking in the sukkah. Now the Gemara says, if they don't have the same measurement, you can't combine them. I'll give you a case where they don't have the same measurement and it still combines. But Tanan, we have a Mishnah like this. Now, normally, the size of a beged is 3 etzba'is, the size of 3 fingers. That's for tummy mace. When is it considered a cloth? That's considered a keli. That's by tummy mace. Now we're talking about 3 tvachim. A beged shleisha al shleisha, 3 tvachim. Why? Because this is talking about what's considered a seat or a mat. We're talking about tumas medrash. Medrash is a tumah that a zav gives off when he stands on something or sits on something. What would be considered a size of a mat or a beged that would be a seat? That would be 3 tvachim. What's 3 tvachim? About a foot. Hasak. Sak is a thicker material. It's made out of wool from goat's hair. What's cashmere? Is that from a goat? Yeah? Hasak, whatever it is, it's made from goat hair. Arba. That's thicker, so therefore the minimal size cloth would be 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Ha'ar, which is leather, chamisha al chamisha, that's 5 tvachim by 5 tvachim. Only if it's this size is considered a keli. Mapats, which I think is like felt, it's pressed here. Shisha al shisha, that's 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. B'tani alan, we have a brisa. It says like this: habeged vasak. You see, what happens is if it's any less than the shear, then it doesn't become tummy. But let's say I combine a beged and a sak. Now, which one is more chamer? The beged is more chamer. It's more strict. Why? Because the beged becomes tummy at 3 tvachim. Sak becomes tummy at 4. So if I combine a beged vasak, the beged can complete the sak to 4 tvachim. The sak can't complete the beged. But the machmer one, the beged, could be used to complete the lenient one. Hasak va'ar, and the same with the sack, and leather, that will complete the leather to be 5 tvachim. And ha'ar va'mapats, the leather will complete the felt to be 6 tvachim. Mitzvah from zemzeh, they'll combine. Now we have a big problem. You just told me that things that don't have the same measurement don't combine. The Gemara answers, Hasam kediktani taima, over there we have a reason. Amar Rab Shimon explained, Matam, what's the reason for this? We have a tumas medrash by these materials. Keditanan, it was taught in the Mishnah, that if you cut out from any of these materials a tefach and a tefach, it will be tamei. Tefach al tefach my chazi, what do you do with the tefach by a tefach? It's nothing. It's not a chair. It's not a mat to stand on. It's not a mat to sit on. Amar Rab Shimon ben Lakish mishum Reb Yanai ha'elvra litlai al gabi chamar. If you turned it into a patch on a saddle, it could once it's a tefach by a tefach, you can use it as a patch. So if there is one instance where the measurement will be the same, then for other things it will also be the same. For other things it can also combine, even though for other things they have separate measurements, but because in one instance they have the same measurement, you can combine for the separate measurements as well. So over here, because there is one measurement where it's the same, which is when it's used as a patch, if you have intention for it to be as a patch, so then the tefach would be good for all of them, so then it will also combine for other things. So we had a challenge to our assertion that things that are different measurements don't combine, We said, yeah, right. Things that are different measurements don't combine. That instance that you had was where they have the same measurement in one area.
It's not really analogous because the reason it combines if in regard to tummy if the person's sitting on it, then it can have bad tummy. Again, we could use the speaking with the sukkah. There is the sukkah that's kosher and the person sitting under it. It might be kosher sukkah, but it's not yotze in the sukkah. So why can't we say here, the measurements make the coach go the time of the stock, but it's still kosher sitting in the sukkah? Or what's up here, just the opposite. The stock is good, but he isn't yotze in the sukkah.
I think that's 2 plus 2 is 5.
What?
I said that sounds like 2 plus 2 is 5.
Anybody can figure out what that
No. What you're asking is,
So I can just rephrase my question.
you see, what you're saying is gonna be correct. There is such a thing as the sukkah is kosher, but I can't sit there. The sukkah is good, but I can't sit there. We mentioned that. It's gonna come up again. Here we're discussing we're just comparing one aspect of this. The things with different measurements combine to invalidate the sukkah, and the different measurements combine to make it to become tameh. That's the whole comparison here. So we said that they shouldn't combine their different measurements. And we said that the instance that we found where they do combine, that's because in one area which you didn't recognize, one area they really have the same measurement, and that's why they'll combine in other areas as well. So in other words, we had a good question because we saw that they have different measurements and they were combining. They said, yeah, because if you open up another book over there, it's going to say that in one area they do have the same measurement. So you can't ask me from that instance. Okay. We learned this. All of the names that we used in this machlekes was Rabbah was arguing with the students of Rav, and the argument was about skach pasel for Amos, which was Rabbah's opinion, or for Tvachim, which is the students of Rav. Besura Amrila lahashmaita bahani lishna. That's how this was taught in Surah. Surah is the location of Rav, and Rav has the opinion that 4 tvachim per skach pasel, 3 tvachim per airspace. In Nardai Masnu, in Nardai they taught Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda taught in the name of Shmuel. That's the location of where Shmuel lived. Shmuel lived in Nardai. Remember, Shmuel said, "Nehirinling shvili derakia, shvili dinardai." He said, "It's clear to me the pathways of the heaven, of the stars, like the paths of Nardai, like the streets of Nardai." It was so clear that, he was a great astronomer. Yeah, the rest of us are going to say, by me, it's the same thing. The streets of heaven are the same as the streets of Nardai. I don't know either. Like Rabbi Kiva, someone said, what's the difference between me and Rabbi Kiva? He has very strong questions. He doesn't know the answer. I also don't know the answer. Okay. So, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, this was the way it was taught in Nardai. Schach pasel be'emtza, paisel ba'arba'a, tvachim, right? In the center, schach pasel is 4 tvachim. Menatzad, paisel ba'arba'amas. On the side, it's 4 amas. We've heard that opinion before it was the students of Rav. Rav Amar, but Rav says, bein menatzad, bein be'emtza ba'arba'amas. We've heard that opinion before as well. That was Rabbah's opinion in Surah. Okay, Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. We have a discussion over here. Who's correct? Rav or Shmuel in the way it's being taught here in Nardai. If you put on a board that's 4 tvachim. Now 4 tvachim, we said, was not kosher for schach, a board of 4 tvachim. Well, according to Shmuel, it was everyone's opinion. According to Rav, it was the opinion only of Rav Meir. Whatever the case is, it's not kosher for schach because it's gezeras tikra. It's a problem. It looks like roofing, and someone may. Okay. Now, Bishlam Rav Damar Bein Be'emtza Bein Minatzad Barba Amis Misham Hachi Ksheira. Why is your sukkah kosher? Because it's only 4 tvachim. 4 tvachim doesn't invalidate the sukkah, even though it's basal schach. It doesn't invalidate the sukkah until it's 4 amas. El Shmuel Damar Be'emtza Barba Amai Ksheira, but according to Shmuel, that says that 4 tvachim will invalidate the sukkah. I have a board of 4 tvachim. Your sukkah should be invalid. The Gemara answers, Hachav Ma'askin and Minatzad. We're dealing with on the side. Shmuel agrees that on the side of the sukkah, I say Daifen Akum up to 4 amas. That's why my sukkah's kosher. Sukkah's kosher. The only thing is that the sign, but I can't sleep under it. Sukkah's kosher, but I can't sleep under it.
Kind of hard to see.
There, right. But the army cots could be 4 tvachim. I don't know. You didn't have an army cot either. Nothing. Divya was in Rabbi Harari's camp. They sleep on the floor. So, yeah. We're dealing with we're on the side. It was on the side, so then it's 4 amas. That explains the Mishnah. Tashima, come and listen. 2 sheets, which is puzzle for schach, can combine to invalidate the sukkah. I'm not saying how much will invalidate the sukkah, but 2 sheets, it doesn't have to be one piece of schach puzzle. It could be 2 of them. Together will be the shear to invalidate the sukkah. However, 2 boards ain't mitzdarfen, they don't combine. The boards are kosher for schach unless they're the wrong size. What is the wrong size? Well, it's machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel says 3 tvachim. Rav says 4 tvachim. Rav says the machlekes, Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, is where Rav Meir says 4 tvachim is not good. Boards are not good. That's only at 4 tvachim. Shmuel said the machlekes, Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, is at 3 tvachim, but 4 tvachim everyone agrees it's not. So Rav Meir Ayman Nasarim Kisadina, Rav Meir says boards will also combine, just like sheets combine. So the Gemara goes like this: we're challenging, we're comparing the 2 lishnas, Surah and Nardai. Rav in Surah held that it was 4 tvachim was invalid. Rav in Nardai holds that it's 4 amas. So it's good according to Rav that says according to the version of Rav that says Bein be'emtza bein minatzad arba amis. That's the way he holds in Nardai. My mitzdarfen. So what does it mean? 2 boards will combine according to Rab Meir mitzdarfen l'dalet amis. It will combine to 4 amas. 4 tvachim is pasal. Pasal schach. 4 amas invalidates the sukkah. So several boards together, or 2 boards that are more than 4 amas, that are more than 4 tvachim each, can combine to 4 amas. But according to the first version of Rav, which was the version in Surah, Damarav be'emtza barba, that Rav says over there 4 tvachim echidami. So what's the case? Idis budalid. What do you mean combine? 4 tvachim is pasal. 4 tvachim invalidates the sukkah. So in order to get it pasal, you need to have 4 tvachim. In order to invalidate the sukkah, it's already invalidates at 4 tvachim. So what's your combination here? What are you combining? If there's 4 tvachim, it's already possible without combining. Eat the less budalid, and if it doesn't have 4 tvachim, kani balmanino, then it's kosher schach. The Gemara answers, you know what? You do have 4 tvachim. That's the easy way to answer this. All of our questions can always be answered. That I have 2 shiurim. I have, if it's on the side, it's 4 amas. If it's in the center, it's 4 tvachim. Anytime you can ask me a question that what's going on, how does it combine 4 tvachim already, I'll say we're talking about the side. Tashima, come and listen. If you used boards of cedar wood, That's 4 tvachim. Everyone says it's puzzle. By the way, in the questions before, one time we asked the question, it's good according to Rav, but according to Shmuel, what are you going to say? Or it's good according to Shmuel, but Rav. Now we said it's good according to Rav in this version, but according to Rav in that version, what happened to the way we were asking before with Shmuel? The answer is that Shmuel had a different way of learning that whole Mishnah, because Shmuel said that 3 tvachim was the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, if you go back a few days when we learned that again. So therefore, according to Shmuel, we don't have any question. There was only 2 ways of learning Rav. There was another machlekes going on that we couldn't ask from Shmuel, so we can only ask on the 2 versions of Rav. Now we say, if you used boards of cedar wood that are 4 tvachim, everyone says it's puzzle. Ein bem dalet, they don't have 4 tvachim. Rabbi Meir paisel Rabbi Yehuda machsher. Rabbi Meir says it's puzzle. Rabbi Yehuda says that it's kosher. I think the Gemara used this as a proof for Shmuel's view that even less than 4 tvachim, even less than 4 tvachim was going to be puzzle according to the way Shmuel learned Rabbi Meir. Sicha ben Asar Shaleres. Tanya Kavasei the Shmuel. The Gemara quoted this before on Daf Yudalid. This is a brisa that supports Shmuel, that the machlekes is in between 3 and 4 tvachim. Okay, it goes like this. Umayda Reb Meir agrees. Shim yesh bein neser leneser k'malei neser. That if there is on and off schach pasel, a board, and then there's kosher schach, then there's a board, then there's pasel schach, then there's kosher schach, then pasel schach. So Reb Meir would agree that sheminiach pesel b'nei mukshera. If you leave the gap, pasel schach kosher, empty space, pasel schach empty space. Just fill in empty space with kosher schach, and it's going to be kosher. If you say that invalid schach is 4 amas, invalidates the sukkah, then good. Then that's why it's kosher. That's where the mayor would say it's kosher, because you don't have 4 amas of invalid schach. You have every 4 tvachim, you have kosher schach. But according to the opinion that says that 4 tvachim will invalidate the entire sukkah, so why is it kosher? You never get 7 tvachim without getting 4 tvachim of somewhere in there of pasel schach. As you go down the whole sukkah, it's every time you think you're getting to a kosher sukkah, there's another 4 tvachim of pasel schach. Amar Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua hacha b'sukkah d'lei havi al shmeina ames. Let's see what the aleph is. Shmeina ames. Good. Mitzvah ames. It's exactly 8 ames. How many tvachim are in an amma? 6. So that would be 48 tvachim. 8 amas. It's 48 tvachim. Shemina amas mitzvah tzamas eskinan. If you have neser pesel, neser pesel mihagisa, you do board. Pesel means kosher schach, because it comes from the word pseles, geir, and v'yekev. The waste, not pesel as in puzzle, but pesel as in the foliage. Right? Neser pesel, board. A migvix, right? A board and kosher schach, from one side. And then you go to the other side and you do neser pesel mihagisa. Then you go to the other side, davlu shnei psalim b'emtza. What's going to happen is the 2 4 tvachim of foliage is going to be in the center, which 2 4 tvachim is going to be 8 tvachim. So we have 20 tvachim here, 20 tvachim here. 20 tvachim is not 4 amas. 24 tvachim is 4 amas. And 20 tvachim is on this side, is not 4 amas yet. So therefore, in the center, I have 2 tvachim of kosher schach, 2 segments, 2 pieces of 4 tvachim of kosher schach, which is 8 tvachim, which is a kosher sukkah. And that's how it's going to work. Okay. V'ka hechsher sukkah danza. Amar Abaya says, Avir shleisha the sukkah gedola. let's say I have airspace of 3 tvachim in a large sukkah. Umiyatai, and I diminish the airspace. Bein bekanim, bein b'shpudim habimiyat. It's better to use pasal schach than to have empty space. So if you have empty space of 3 tvachim and you don't have any more branches left, so put in a piece of tinfoil, and that will diminish your 3 tvachim of empty space, and your sukkah will be kosher. Havimiyat. Yeah, tinfoil. Yeah. Tell the Judaica stores. Yeah, that would be a huge chiddush. It would be a huge chiddush because usually tinfoil is like $2. They can sell it for $7. It's like the guy that was asking his Rebbe for bracha for parnasa. He said, and he stopped asking. So he meets the Rebbe on the street. The Rebbe says, "What happened?" He says, "I figured out how to make money." So what do? He says, "I bought a cow." He says, "A cow? You make money with the cow in the city?" And he says, "No, I milk the cow." And he says, "But there's no grass. What do you serve it?" So he says, "No, I serve it milk. It drinks milk, and then I milk it." And how much milk does it give you? He says, "A gallon." He says, "How much milk do you serve it?" He says, "A gallon." He says, "How do you make money like that?" He says, "No, I serve it chalavakum, and I milk chalav Yisrael. You can make money." Okay, so the sukkah ktana, though it's going to be different. We just said that sukkah gedola, you can make it kosher by putting in schach pasal if there's airspace. And a sukkah ktana, kanim havimiyat shpudim layavimiyat. We mentioned this before. It's interesting that it's exactly Abaya that's saying this because it was Abaya that said it last time as well. Abaya said, asked Rabbah, but in the sukkah ktana they have the same shear. Now he's saying it again. In the sukkah ktana, you can't use even a combination of schach pasal and empty space. Why? Because the fact is you don't have 7 tvachim of kosher schach. Once you lose your lavud, then you don't have kosher schach. V'ani mili min hatzad. That would only be on the side. What would be on the side? Less than 3 tvachim is lavud. However, aval be'emtza, but in the center, pligi bar Ravacha v'Ravina. There's a machlekes Ravacha in Ravina. Chad amar yesh lavud be'emtza, v'chad amar ein lavud be'emtza. There's one opinion that holds that you don't say lavud be'emtza. The Gemara Pesachim tells us that whenever there's a machlekes Ravacha and Ravina, and it doesn't tell us who holds what, Ravacha is always l'chumra. It's easy to remember because Ravacha is l'chumra. Right. So here Ravacha would be the one that says, I don't say lavud be'emtza. Tosfos points out, he says everyone agrees that you say lavud be'emtza. Over here we're only talking about lavud on the top, on the schach. In the walls, everyone agrees that there's lavud. In the middle of a wall, if you have every three tvachim. But there's a machlekes if I say lavud. We never had this opinion before. My time of demand amar yesh lavud be'emtza. Where did you hear this? What's the source of this? That there is lavud in the center of the roof. Under 3 tvachim will be considered solid. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. We're dealing with a mavli to carry on Shabbos in an alleyway. You need to have at the entrance to the alleyway. You need to have a beam that goes across. Let's say you have a beam that's coming out from this wall, and I have a beam that's coming out from the other wall. Or I have one beam that's going out and it doesn't reach the other wall. Or it's not touching. But pachis mishleisha, if it's within 3 tvachim, you don't need to combine it. It's considered combined already because lavud is that's what lavud does. Shleisha, but once it's 3 tvachim, then you need to have another beam because you're missing on the lavud. This opinion holds that I say lavud in the middle of a roof. A kaira would be like the roof. V'idach, what would the other opinions that says I don't say lavud? He says shani kers derabanan. Over there, you're allowed to carry biblically in the mavoi. It has 3 walls. It's Rosh Hashanah, according to the Torah. Only a rabbinic law that has you putting up that thing, that beam on the front. So for a rabbinic law, we say lavud, but not in a sukkah. My time at the Manda Amar ain't lavud b'emtza. What's the other opinion that says I don't say lavud b'emtza? This is the chiddush over here. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. We're going to have, the Mishnah is going to look repetitive. It's going to say the same thing twice. Rashi says that it's what we're bringing it for, it's actually the same thing twice. The reason why it says it twice is because over there are differences in what. And it says Aruba Shebabayas. Aruba is a skylight. And there's a gap, this skylight is opened 1 tepa. Tuma Babayas. Let's say there's a corpse or a piece of a corpse in the house. So Kuli tummy, everything is tummy. Mashik, can I get Aruba tar? But let's say right directly under the skylight is a keli. So because the roof isn't covering that keli, so that keli is tar. Tuma keneged aruba. Let's say there's tuma directly under the skylight. The skylight's only 1 tefa. That's a tefa of tuma. Kolabayas kuli tar. Everything is tar because the tuma just goes right through. And now what we just learned is that I don't say lavud. I don't say that it's solid. Ein baruba pesach tefach. Let's say that you don't have a tefach there. You think it's going to be different, the way the Mishnah is set up, but it's actually going to be the same halacha. So don't be surprised. And why do you have to divide it into 2 cases? That Rashi says is for other halacha. Ein baruba pesach tefach. Let's say you don't have a tefach there. Tuma babayis, can I get a rubatar? That keli, the keli, this keli that's underneath the skylight. So that's going to be tar. Tuma keneged aruba. Let's say there's a tuma directly under the aruba, the skylight. Kolabayis kuli tar. Then everything is tar. Why? I don't say love it. I don't say that it's solid. The idach. What does the other opinion say? He holds that you do say love it in the middle of a roof. So shani hilchas tuma dachi gemirla. Don't bring a raya from hilchas tuma. Hilchas tuma is Allah l'meishim Sinai. You can't tell me proofs from Sukkah because of halachas of tuma. Darash Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi gave a drasha. He gave a speech. He taught. If a house caves in and you put schach on top, it's kosher. It's not a problem for him to teach that. It's a Mishnah. And Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi is a student of Rabbi Akiva, is a Tana. Amal lefan of Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, which we had before, he was a teacher, he was a Rav in Sipari. His father was a Rav in Sipari. He says to Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi, Rabbi Parish, explain what the halach is. Kach Pirish Abba, my father, Rabbi Yosi ben Chalafta, he explained it. He says, Arba Amas Psula, Pachsmi Arba Amas Kshera. You have to get into the details. Not always will that be kosher. Depends how big the lip is on the side. Darash Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi also taught. Avruma Sharia. Avruma is a type of fish. Do you remember if we gave it a name to it? A small fish. Abramis.
Flathead mullet.
Flathead mullet. What are you using? A art scroll?
No, a Steinsaltz.
Steinsaltz. Oh wow. Flathead mullet. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always impressed with these translations, the guts that they have to decide. Because everything evolves. Like our corn is not the same corn, our wheat isn't the same wheat, but I guess how much could it evolve? Flathead mullet is the same. Okay. Very good. Very good. So it doesn't get its scales until it matures. So Darash Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, Avruma Sharia. Avruma, this abramis of Avruma fish, this flathead mullet is kosher. You can eat it. Very important halacha. Amal Afana Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Parish. Rabbi, explain. Not always can you just eat it. Kach Amar Abba. My father, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, he taught this and he said, he gave the details. Shama complaini asura, shama complaini muteris. In such and such a place it's forbidden, in such and such a place it's mutter. Kiyadam Rabaya, like Abaya said, Hayt Tzachanta debav nara sharia. How do you translate tzachanta? It's another type of small fish. Another type of small fish. Also, that it develops its scales later on. So my timer, what's the reason why it's kosher if it comes from the river Bav? My timer. Ilem mishum deredifa maya. What we're looking for is a place where, you see, it's going to look very similar to the non-kosher fish. Both of them don't have scales at this point. So it has to come from an area where there's no non-kosher fish that go there. So if it's because the water in that, the flow of water in that river was rushing, and if it would be a non-kosher fish, it wouldn't have had a spine. That's exactly all non-kosher fish, and therefore it wouldn't have been able to go in that current. It's not true. We see that the non-kosher fish can go in fast currents. Maybe it's salt water. The non-kosher fish doesn't have scales, so it can't stay in the salt water. It needs to be in the fresh water. But it's not true. We find non-kosher fish in salt water as well. Rather, it's because the eggs are laying on a certain mud. This mud that's in this area, the dag tummy doesn't lay its eggs on that. The fish eggs, they drop the eggs on some different areas. This area, this type of mud, the dag tummy didn't put its eggs on that.
Wait, it's a flat water coming?
It's kosher.
It's kosher.
Yeah.
Oh, it's mud.
No, what we're saying is that this, if you get it from this specific river, then it's going to be kosher, because in this river, the mud in that river doesn't have the whatever it's required for the dag tameh to put the eggs in, which means there's no dag tameh in this river. So the only fish that would be in this river, even without scales, are the ones that are later going to develop the scales, which are the kosher fish. I don't know if it loses or it doesn't develop. It could be it loses it also. I'm not sure. Amar Ravina says, but now, as you know, that the rivers are not the way they were at the time of creation. They change depending on flooding. They'll take on new paths and different things. So now that the rivers are now the river of Asan and the river of Gamda now is flowing into the river of Bav. I'm sorry? Before global warming, right?
Who's the hatchery attached to the show? Number what?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So because the rivers change, so now this river is flowing into that river, so the dag tameh is now able to get there, and you can't eat the fish anymore.
It used to be pure cool water, just like we said. Now it's not pure water.
Uh-huh. So it affects also the fish. Okay, let's leave it over here. Shikaya.
Good job, everybody.